Alright, there's this woman named Christine who decided to feed her family of 6 for an entire week using X amount of dollars. I'm gonna let you guess how much money she used. 300? No. How about 100? Not even. She decided to only use $30 to feed her whole family for an entire week. So if you're taking 6 people times 3 meals a day for 7 days in a week, that is 126 meals. And if you guys don't know Christine, she's better known as the Frugal Fit Mom. I'll put the link to her original video in the description. But this was a challenge that she took on back in 2020, which now has over 2.4 million views. The only food items she used outside of her $30 budget was salt, pepper, and oil for cooking. Other than that, she really did stay true to this $30 budget. But like, how? This is literally 24 cents per meal throughout this entire week, and I'll be honest, seeing the creative meals that she came up with, that is making me rethink my entire grocery budget. I'm gonna walk you through Christine's exact strategies from her Walmart haul, and we're gonna see if this is actually realistic for people today. So the first strategy that I'm taking from her challenge is the from scratch approach. Before diving into the actual grocery list, let's look at the mindset shift that made everything possible. Christine had this idea that she was gonna buy raw ingredients over the finished products. For example, instead of buying a whole loaf of bread, she decided to buy flour and yeast, which she could create way more servings with. She also refused to buy actual tomato sauce and decided to go with tomato paste that she could convert into way more tomato sauce. And finally, instead of buying chicken broth up front, she bought chicken bouillon, which she could again convert into more chicken broth. And thankfully, in the case of bread, Christine actually dropped the recipe for her no-knead bread. And if you are a home bread maker as well, let us know your recipes in the comments. Her second strategy had to do with the biggest protein hack. One thing that makes any meal feel complete is having protein. So when she first entered Walmart, she grabbed this big old 10-pound bag of chicken leg quarters. All right, fast forward, it's 2025, and Ashley and I are looking for those chicken leg quarters. Let's see if they even sell them. Oh, you found them right here. Oh, snap. All right, here we go, a 10-pound bag of chicken leg quarters. Today, they are $7.72. Honestly, I thought it'd be more expensive. It's not a bad cut of meat. Maybe we should get those. Before watching this video, I haven't even considered that as my meat of choice. But turns out, because it's bone-in, because the skin's included, this not only works as a very cheap cut of meat, but when you cook it, you end up creating some great chicken broth as well. But there's also another reason why chicken leg quarters were a strategic move. A chicken leg quarter is the thigh and drumstick of a chicken, so we're talking about dark meat here, which obviously tastes better. Argue with me in the comments, but there's also a higher fat content, which makes this cut of meat way more filling. All right, that's enough of that. And boy, do you realize how adaptable a chicken leg quarter is to all the different meals out there? Christine ended up making a chicken and rice casserole, a chicken pot pie, as well as a chicken noodle soup. So if you're really tight with your budget, you can get very creative with one cut of meat that might be affordable compared to buying a whole beef tri-tip. And since we're talking about protein, she did also buy 3 dozen eggs for $3.76, which I am totally jealous of, even though this was only back in 2020. All right, so we found the 3 dozen eggs. Looks like they are now costing $8, which is a little more than double the price back in 2020. And surprisingly, this is cheaper than what it was 2 months ago. So let the community know in the comments, what is your biggest sources of protein when you go grocery shopping? Right now, my wife and I are rocking the chicken breasts, but maybe chicken leg quarters is something we'll consider. Strategy 3, fuel that fills up. There are a lot of cheap filling carb options out there. For example, Christine chose this 3-pound pack of spaghetti, 5 pounds of rice for only $2.22, and 2 pounds of dried pinto beans. If you've watched Dave Ramsey, even for a little bit, you've probably heard the phrase beans and rice and beans, especially when you're on a tight budget.
A beans and rice cookbook. No, it's a metaphor.
And I'll be honest, that meal, rice and beans, it's pretty bomb. It's a complete nutritious meal in itself, and you can't really hate on it. Literally, Hispanics eat that all the time. And by the way, one thing I loved out of her meal list was just plain old oatmeal. She bought the classic Quaker Oats cylinder and made breakfast for a few mornings for her entire family and just sprinkled some chopped apples on top of that oatmeal. For me, oatmeal is like the elixir of life. As someone with a family history of high blood pressure, once I start eating a bowl of oatmeal consistently, all my levels, literally like go back to normal. Let me know if you felt the same experience too. But oatmeal's great, it's super filling, and of course with those apples sprinkled on top, it makes it taste, less like cement. Strategy 4, concentrated flavor. Now, I really don't think about this, but I think this is where Christine's motherly instincts really kick in. She focused on buying concentrated flavors, like I mentioned, tomato paste and chicken bouillon. Bouillon? Billion? How do you pronounce that?
Let's say it all together. Bouillon.
Bouillon.
One more time. Bouillon.
Bouillon.
Now, let's split.
But yeah, that chicken bouillon ended up giving her 12 cups of chicken broth, which is a huge bang for your buck. My only issue though, is with that tomato paste, she made this sauce for her pasta dish, but like, what is that? I know she had a lot of restrictions, she did the best she really could, but like, it just looks sad. And that's why later in this video, we are going to talk about how realistic this challenge is for us today. Strategy 5, planning before purchasing. Even though this was just a YouTube challenge and it wasn't something she would sustain for a long period of time, she demonstrated the ultimate meal plan. It's not like she just walked into Walmart and improvised what ingredients she would buy to stay under $30 for the whole week. She had to meticulously think about which meals she was going to make, which meals could add variety, which ones could be more filling, and which ones did not require expensive ingredients. A lot of times we end up grocery shopping, we think about this recipe we saw on Facebook or TikTok, and then we suddenly decide we need this cut of meat or this ingredient because TikTok said so. That could lead us to us being very inefficient with our grocery shopping. Instead, we need to do our planning before we even take step into the grocery store. Check your pantries, your fridges, and see what ingredients you already currently have. Then define what are the 2 to 4 dishes I want to make throughout this week, and finally write out the ingredients that you actually need in order to make these dishes before you even go into the grocery store. A couple resources I've been using to decide what meals I could make with my current ingredients is TikTok and even ChatGPT. And I know my Gen Z is really showing here, but don't knock it. If you seriously have only certain ingredients like cottage cheese, curry powder, and lentils, I bet if you plug that into ChatGPT, it could come up with a meal for you. You know what? Let's do that right now. Hey ChatGPT, I only have cottage cheese, lentils, and curry powder in my pantry. What could I make out of these 3 ingredients? Boom, curried lentils with cottage cheese, soup, curried lentil and cottage cheese dip / spread. Alright, someone better cook this and send me a picture. We actually have the Frugal Rich Facebook group. We've had people upload pictures of their grocery list, different meals they've made, and we'd love for you to join. It's completely free, link in the description. Strategy 6, the leftover feast. Christine made multiple big meals throughout this challenge, and I remember on one night in particular, she just laid out the Tupperware full of the leftovers. It was spaghetti, chicken pot pie, and chicken rice casserole. I absolutely loved that she did this. Guys, it is no longer the 1950s where it's all stay-at-home moms making huge feasts for their families. I know we all get busy, I know we got things to do, so don't put so much pressure on yourself when it comes to presentation. You're feeding your family, so that is already a win. So who cares what's displayed or what the combinations of food is? They're just kids, right? And husbands are usually not that picky. I'm sorry if they are, but this is actually a core memory for me as well. Back when I was growing up, every Sunday would be our leftover day. We would just take out all the leftovers from the fridge, throw them in serving plates, heat them up in the microwave, and then we would enjoy them with our own little bed of rice each. That's how we avoided food waste each week, and to be honest, I enjoyed those days. Sometimes food is even better after it's been sitting in the fridge. Alright, but let's get real for a second here. How sustainable is this type of grocery shopping and meal planning? Do you think in 2025 we could still feed a family of 6 for an entire week with only $30? Well, based off prices nowadays, I think no. But I really do want to applaud the Frugal Fit mom back in 2020 for doing this challenge and for not bending the rules to fit her needs. She did this whole challenge in such a classy way. She didn't come across like, oh, I'm gonna be poor for a week. She literally just wanted to share some ideas of what meals you could make for a large family if you do have a very limited budget. And honestly, shout out to her kids and her husband for dealing with these kinds of meals, because once again, what is that? I honestly would have been okay with her using some of the seasonings she already had, but she wanted to stay so true to the challenge that I just gotta respect her for it. I just have to note though, if you have a picky spouse or picky children, this challenge might not work for you. But then again, it's either you eat this or you starve. So you better eat it. And my other thought on the reality of this challenge is that if you look at the meals she made, where were the fresh fruits and vegetables? If your budget really is that strict, yeah, you definitely have to cut out some very nutritious ingredients out of your diet. But for most people, you probably don't really have to do that. There are great resources out there like food pantries and churches that are always giving out food to those people who do really need it. And honestly, there is really no shame to using those resources. I remember graduating from high school, me and a few friends would volunteer at some of these food pantries and they had some nice stuff. So if providing food for your family is really in crisis mode right now, please go and use the resources out there. I'm sure you can find them on Facebook. And if you have experience with volunteering or even using these food pantries for yourself, let us know how that went for you in the comments. For my wife and I, we stick to a pretty minimal grocery list. If you want to see what we buy every single week, click on this video right here and I'll break it all down for you. Other than that, if you haven't joined the Frugal Rich Community Facebook group, join for free in the description. See you guys there. Peace.